So, for the most part, whether we're coaching in 3D, through video, just through person using our eyes, we're trying to make it as simple as possible to improve. So, create the most change by being the least invasive. And where we can really look at that is at the starting position. So, with this player, we're just looking at the thorax or the chest rotation. So, we have the values from before, let's say, on the left hand side, and the values from after over here on the right hand side. And just noticing, we'll have another little perspective at this in a short while, just the orientation of the rib cage on this player. So we can quite clearly see over here on the left hand side that rib cage more spun out to the left hand side. The right hand side, that rib cage, let's say, more in line with where they're trying to go, or more parallel, you could use that same phrase, towards target. We obviously have that represented by the value. So below here, 13.59 degrees open to the target, and on the after, the thorax rotation, the chest rotation, actually 1.50 close. So before we go any further, what's a nice number? What's a nice guideline? Really, for most players, we find them be in between, say, 0 to about 3 degrees open. That would be a nice guideline. Once you get really above 5, 6 into those numbers, then it can possibly start having a negative effect in what you do. So if we have these other numbers also with us, this bend, this kind of forward bend of the chest, excuse me, and we also have this side bend here just as reference. So when we get started, and we'll move into the backswing on the left hand side, this player here beforehand, when the pelvis or the chest, excuse me, is very open at the start, we'll get them up to the top of the backswing there, and we see a thorax rotation number, a value of 82 degrees. We see the bend 0.76, so not really a lot changed there, and the side bend 30.83 degrees T, meaning the trail side is higher than the lead side. We go over to the player on the right hand side. This is the after, with the chest more, let's say, aligned to the target or parallel to the target at the setup position. We go into top of backswing into roughly about the same position. Same time in the golf swing. We get a little bit more chest rotation, 5 degrees. We'd expect to get that because we've changed it and altered it at the setup. The thorax bend number now becomes a little bit higher, so now that chest being about 7 degrees of forward bend, and the side bend actually starts to go down a little bit too. So now we only really have that trail side, the trail side of the chest, the trail shoulder might be a nice way of describing it, is a little bit less high at the top of the backswing position. So as that player then moves in transition on the right hand side, that trail, that side bend number starts to dissipate as they start going down. So very quickly, that right shoulder starting to move downwards, the left shoulder starting to move up in a simpler way of describing it. That would be a lowering mechanism for the golf club and the hands. Over on the left hand side, if we look at that thorax side bend number, that number stays fairly constant in that first move in transition, and then it starts to work its way down. So a little bit of a delay in that right side getting lower in transition from the player on the left hand side, and we'd expect that as they've moved, as they orientated themselves in backswing. Now, the issue with this player that they were having was an over the top action. They were causing or having a club head that would move quite significantly leftward through impact, creating a bit of a pull, slice, pull, fade pattern. And when we kind of attached that and looked at the setup position, we knew the chest was very open, but we wanted to investigate further as to how that could affect things downstream. And this really is it in the side bend number. And there's other things in there as well. But one of those things that we would have checked very early on was the club face, which was absolutely fine. It was functional. But when we looked at this move here, definitely creating a little bit more forward bend, so the chest more down towards the ground, less high in the trail side, so that thorax side bend number, all those things would really encourage that club to get, let's say, a little less steep in transition, a little bit more shallow. Not necessarily the pitch of the club itself, but just where the hand path went, where the club head went. So just creating that better position at the setup has all these knock-on effects later on in the golf swing. So let's have a little look at a different perspective of the same setup positions. So, an above viewpoint of the same setup position, sometimes it can be easier to see the rib cage orientation from there. So, looking at the player again, the left hand side being the before, let's say, we could just very nicely and easily just run along a line just above the scap there, and we could do the same with the player on the right hand side. You would see that representation quite easily. You could also look at just the spin out of the rib cage down in here versus over here. But let's just take away a couple of things just to make this a little bit easier. So we'll take those lines away, and we'll actually remove everything else of the player and just show the rib cage orientation. And let's do the same over on the right hand side just so we can get a good viewpoint, a good differential in terms of those. And sometimes it being a little bit clearer when we take away the other sections or the other parts of the golf swing. So we can clearly see on the left hand side that left scapula pulled back more around here, the left side of the rib cage pulled back more around here. And again, the player wasn't very conscious they were doing this, just how they learned to set up, so to speak. And then on the right hand side, much more of those scaps, the kind of those shoulder blades, let's say on the back of the rib cage, much more aligned than what we have on the left hand side. So let's just reintroduce the golf club just for some context, and we'll see where that trail arm, because of those orientations, pitches. So that trail hand, pitch of the shaft over here, and we'll do the same over on the left hand side. And what we can kind of start to see now is that trail hand, that right hand pushed a little bit further forward, more towards target, versus the player on the right hand side. And quite simply because that right shoulder is further down and towards the golf ball, therefore the right hand is pushed further forward too. So in a nice way, when we're looking at these motions throughout golf swings, trying to solve golf swings, trying to fix golf swings, a nice place can really start can be just the setup. Look at the orientations. Everything within spectrums doesn't necessarily have to be open or have to be closed or have to be square. Just again, you're just looking at functional spectrums. So you don't want to go too far off the end of those spectrums, because then you have to create adaptations downstream in the golf swing, which then create more adaptations, which then can lead you to your issues at impact. So when you're looking at the orientations of the chest, the pelvis, its setup, can you be a little bit open? Absolutely. Can you be a lot open? In my opinion, it's hard to be effective or efficient when you get to large numbers of degrees of openness, let's say between the chest and the pelvis at setup. And then from this video, you can see what possible adaptations you might require or movements might be caused downstream as you go to swing the golf club.